If you enjoy this podcast, please consider clicking on support the show in the show notes and support us in a monthly way. It will give us a chizuk and the ability to continue. Zalman Dovid, Homliner, was from the Bavustet Mimim Lubavitch. He was famous to be a Oived and a maskil. The Chassid Rebbe Tzalman Lishansky related that Zalman Dovid, when he came to Lubavitch and when he learned a little bit of Chassidus, and he started to taste the taste of davening, of his bonanus. So one day, he davened, and he was mizbainen, and the davening took longer than usual. When he finished davening, it was already time for Seder Nigla. So he came to Zal a few minutes late. Now generally, the Oivdim had permission to daven ba'avodah, to daven ba'arichos, but you had to get a special permission. Not anybody who wanted could just come late to Seder. You had to prove that you are a real Oived to be able to get permission to come late to Seder Nigla. So when he came late, the Mashgiach and Nigla, Rabbi Yankel Baruch Karasi, called him over, and he gave him over the head. How come you're late? So Rabbi Zalman Dovid answered, I don't know, I davened and I just didn't realize and I just finished late. And he gave him over the head, and okay, the next day, Zalman Dovid came a few minutes even later. And the Mashgiach called him over again and asked him, why are you late? And he said, I davened, and I didn't realize, and I just finished late. This kept on going day after day, and every day kept coming later and later, until his avodas tefillah took literally the whole entire day. So he finished davening at the end of Seder Nigla, and he only managed to come to Seder Chassidus at night. So Rabbi Yankel Baruch Karasik, the Mashgiach in Nigla, didn't call him over anymore, because he didn't see him. One day, Rabbi Yankel Baruch Karasik, the Mashgiach, met Rabbi Zalman Dovid on the street in Lubavitch, and he asked him, Zalman Dovid, are you still in yeshiva? So he said, yeah. So how come I didn't see you for the last few weeks in Seder? He says, I davened. So at that point, Rabbi Yankel Baruch Karasik decided that it's time to take more drastic measures, and he told the Frierdiker Rebbe about it, which was the menahel of the yeshiva at that time. The Frierdiker Rebbe called Rabbi Zalman Dovid over, and he asked him, Mitvos davenst tu? What are you davening with? Meaning, which mimer do you think? So Zalman Dovid said, I daven with the mimer that the Rebbe says every Shabbos. So the Frierdiker Rebbe asked Zalman Dovid, in this last week's mimer, what's the chiddush in the second half of the mimer over the first half of the mimer? Zalman Dovid answered, whatever he answered, and the Frierdiker Rebbe had no reaction on his face, and he didn't answer him anything, and he just left. But from then on, nobody disturbed him from his davening, and he was allowed to continue davening. Rabbi Yoel Khan once related, he knew a certain person who learned in Temchet Mimim in Lubavitch, and his behavior and his learning were not proper, to an extent that he even had a nickname in yeshiva, the Shegitz. So Rabbi Yoel said that he told him that the Mashpia, Reb Shilom Kuratin, once called him over, this Bacher, and he asked him, what is he learning? So Baruch was afraid that Reb Shilom wants to test him, and when he's going to discover that he doesn't know anything, he will give him over the head. So he answered a name of a certain mimer. So Reb Shilom mentioned a certain deep nekuda in this mimer about Chachmas Tima, but this Bacher had no clue what it's talking about. So Reb Shilom explained him this inyan very well, and since this Bacher was smart, he understood it and he liked it. The next day, Reb Shilom called over the Bacher again. So this Bacher thought that now, today is going to give me over the head. How come I didn't know anything about the mimer? But instead, the Mashpia Reb Shilom just told him, do you know what we explained yesterday? That's not really the depth of the inyan. And then he went on to explain him the inyan of Chachmas Timba even deeper. And this went on for a few days. Day after day, he called him over and he explained the mimer deeper and deeper. At the same time, the Anhol of the yeshiva told the Bacher that he should move to a different room, to a different bedroom. The Anhol had an excuse of space, etc., but he understood that the reason is probably because his new roommate was Reb Zalman Dovid. Because the Anhala wanted that he should have an effect from Reb Zalman Dovid, seeing his Krishma Shalamita, his davening. Reb Zalman Dovid, which became his roommate, spoke to this Bacher a lot, Binyane Avodah, and this Bacher had a tremendous derech eretz for him. However, in one of their conversations, the Bacher wanted to check out what will be the reaction of Zalman Dovid if he tells him off about something. So he put up a serious face and he asked him, Zalman Dovid, How do you talk to me about Avodah? All of you guys are chitzonim and liars. So Zalman Dovid was wondering, why are you saying that? So he answered, so the Bacher kept on going, you for an example, you sing during davening. What do you sing during davening? Do you have Av of a Yira until the Niggun comes out of your heart? And this Bacher kept tying to Zalman Dovid, which was the Ovid of Tevchet Mimim, that is a chitza and a liar, and there's no reason why he's singing during davening at Krish Hashem Alamita. So Zalman Dovid's reply was, he started to excuse himself and he said, you know something? You are very much right about me. I'm a liar, a fool. But since after all I'm a Yid, and each Yid has a neshama, so when I learn and I think a little bit of Chassidus, my heart awakens and a Niggun comes out. It's true, my Niggun is just gasus. However, I can't hold myself back. And the Yid finished relating to Rabbi Yoel and he said that reply of Reb Zalman Dovid affected him much more than the Haskalos of Reb Shilem, and even much more than the Krishma Shalamita of Reb Zalman Dovid himself. All the Rebbeim wrote the Ma'amarim down, except for the Alter Rebbe and our Rebbe. So the Rebbe Rashab would say a Maimer every Friday night, and usually he would write it down. However, not always. Sometimes the Rebbe Rashab would not write the Ma'amarim, but there were other Chassidim, the Chayzim, who wrote down Hanachos of the Rebbe Rashab's Ma'amarim. Sometimes the Rebbe Rashab would ask the Gabbai to get for him a certain Maimer. So if the Rebbe Rashab had a copy of the Maimer, then the Gabbai would just get the copy that the Rebbe Rashab wrote. What if the Rebbe Rashab didn't have his own written Maimer? So then they would get a Hanacha that the Chayzim wrote. The thing is that at certain times, the Rebbe Rashab asked that nobody should write Hanachas on certain Ma'amarim. A specific Ma'amarim, the Rebbe Rashab asked that nobody should write a Hanacha on it. So usually it wasn't a problem because the Rebbe Rashab himself wrote his own Hanacha. But what if the Rebbe Rashab years later asked to see that Maimer, and nobody was allowed to write the Maimer of that Shabbos, and there happens to be a Shabbos that the Rebbe Rashab himself also didn't write the Maimer? So what they would do in such a case is they will call over the Chayzrim and they will sit around the table and they will call it Kleiben Verter. They will collect words, meaning the Chayzrim will repeat from their memory the Maimer as they remember it, and then they will put it down on paper and bring it to the Rebbe Rashab. So Reb Zalman Dovid, even in the weeks that they were not allowed to write down the Ma'amarim, Reb Zalman Dovid himself did write down the Ma'amarim secretly, and he put it in a box behind his bed. So one time, when the Rebbe Rashab asked to see a certain Maimer, and there was no copy of it because it was a week that they were not allowed to write it down, so the Gabbai walked into the Zal and he collected the Chayzim and he told them to meet at a certain time in his office to write the Maimer down. Zalman Dovid, which was one of the Chayzim, heard which Maimer it's going to be, and he realized that he actually has this Maimer written in the box in his room. So he went to his room and he chazered the Maimer very well from the Ksav that he had. And then he came to the gathering where they were writing down the Maimer. And since he had a Maimer fresh in his head, so he had the best Hanacha of the Maimer from his memory. So he kept saying more and more paragraphs as much as he can, so the Rebbe Rashab gets the best version of the Maimer possible. When the Gabbai brought to the Rebbe Rashab the Maimer, and the Rebbe Rashab read through the Maimer, he called over the Gabbai and he asked him, please find out which Chayzer said this and these paragraphs. And he pointed at all the paragraphs that Rebbe Zalman Dovid said. So the Gabbai went and he found out that it was Zalman Dovid. So when he told that to the Rebbe Rashab told him, tell him that I want to see him. And Zalman Dovid walked into the Rebbe Rashab's room. The Rebbe Rashab asked him, do you write down the Ma'amarim? And he said yes. So the Rebbe Rashab asked him, when do you write down the Ma'amarim? So Zalman Dovid answered, the Rebbe says a Maimer Friday night. So on Sunday, I daven with the Maimer. On Monday, I daven with the Maimer. On Tuesday, I daven with the Maimer. On Wednesday, I daven with the Maimer. On Thursday, I'm davening with the Maimer. Thursday night, after a whole week of davening with the Maimer, I sit down to write the Maimer. The Rebbe Rashab had such nachas from this, the Rebbe Rashab wanted to give him a present. So the Rebbe Rashab's present was that he gave him a list of Mare Mekoimois to look up, to learn, that will give him a good understanding of the Sugya and Chassidus of Toihu and Tikkun. Reb Zalman Dovid had a lot of iskafia, so the taivas don't disturb him from Avodas Hashem. In the year of Tafresh Pei was a big hunger in Russia, and all the fasting that he took upon himself together with the hunger that was on the streets made him very weak. He got a lung infection and he passed away a short while later in the year of Tafresh Pei Aleph, and he was still a bacher. When he was lying sick in bed, he once cried and he said, all this avodah and the sigufim, if because of all of that I have to return my neshama to the Eibishter, over there, up there, there's no mitzvahs ma'asiyos. One hanachas tefillin in this world is worth more than sigufim and iskafia for many years. If I would have known that that would be the result of all of my iskafia, I would give up on all of my avodah so I could at least be mekayim mitzvahs for one additional day. So the Medal Futafas said that when Reb Dovid Haradoker heard about it, he said, it's true, putting on tefillin once is worth more than iskafia of many years. But to get to that recognition, you actually have to have iskafia for many years. We'll finish off with a Niggun Simcha in honor of Lag Baomer. At Lag Baomer Tafshin Zayin or Tafshin Ches, there was a Fabrengen by the Fidik Rebbe upstairs in 770. In the middle of the Fabrengen, the Fidik Rebbe turned to Reb Michal Dvarkin and he told him to start a Niggun Simcha. So Reb Michal Dvarkin started a Niggun Simcha that nobody recognized. And he sang it and he taught it to the crowd, and everybody became very into it. After the Fabrengen, our Rebbe came out of the Fabrengen together with Reb Shmuel Levitin and Reb Michal Dvarkin, and they had their hands on each other's shoulders, and they were singing the Niggun with great simcha, and they came downstairs to the Zal and kept dancing to this Niggun for a while. And this is why Chassidim called that the Chabad Lag Baomer Niggun. Since it's Firas Baomer, we will not put the Niggun the way it's in the Chayach. We'll just sing it without music. Ay 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 dididam ay dididim ay 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 dididam ay didid ay 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 dididam ay ay dididim ay 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 dididam ay didid ay 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 dididam ay dididim ay dididam ay didid ay 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 dididam ay dididim ay dididam ay didid ay 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 didid ay 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 ayam 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 ay didam ay 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 ayam oy mama 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 ay 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 ayam ay 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 mama mama ay didam ay didam ay 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 didim ay didam bam 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 ay didam ay didim ay 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 didam ay didid ay ay